Hi folks. This week we're going to be looking at families and reading, and I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail in this introductory PowerPoint because basically everything that I have to say is in your first and only required reading, and that is Chapter 1 from the book that Paula Schwannenflugel and I just published, and that chapter is about families and reading. Now, this week we're mostly looking at early reading. We're looking at what happens in reading mainly before kids ever even get to school. And that chapter, it's about 22 pages, so it is fairly long, but it's very comprehensive. The references are not behind the chapter. They were published at the end of the book, so I'm going to attach the reference list in your optionals for those of you that really like to check out references. But it's pretty comprehensive. It will cover all the way from early oral development through shared reading and emergent literacy and all kinds of other stuff. So I hope you find it a helpful chapter. And then the only other thing that I'm asking you to do for sure this week is to watch a video put out by the Wisconsin State Reading Organization, and it's called The Power of Reading to Your Child. This video basically recaps, in much less detail of course, everything in the chapter, but what I like about it is it's a video that you could share with teachers or families to really help them understand how much a difference families make, especially again in what happens in literacy development before kids ever get to school. And a long time ago we used to think that kids began to read and their literacy development began when they first came to school. But now we know that a lot of it happens and a lot of the influences happen even before they arrive at school. Now, besides those two things, I want you to pick one of these to read, and it's totally your choice. The Zies and Wallace article is about a program in a school library to send home books and good stuff, and I think you'll enjoy that, with young elementary school kids so that they're to engage families in literacy related activity. There's a classic article here by Pat Edwards called Empowering Low-Income Parents to Read with Their Children. And Pat Edwards is the person who writes about this. She's been doing it for many years, as you can see. And this is about one of her very first projects where she worked in Mississippi with families in a very low-income community who wanted to know what to do with their kids and how to do it and just didn't know. So she writes about that. Then the other article is by D.S. Mitchell and Harris. It's called Multicultural Mosaic, but it's about parent-kid book clubs. And this is an article that focuses more on middle school and high school. So those of you that want to look at older kids, that's probably the article you're going to want to pick. Now, as always, there's a gallon of optionals. There's a great TEDx talk about how talking with children impacts their brain structure. That thing you see that baby in is a magnetic, I can't remember the total title of it, but a magnetic encephalography something or another. Anyway, and they show how talking to children very, very early imprints their brain for certain types of language development. Another optional article, McNichol and Dalton, is about a public library governmental initiative in Britain and talking about how they reached families throughout Britain through the public libraries by working through the children. And it's about public libraries, but I think some of the lessons are very, very applicable to school libraries because the children is who you've got in the school libraries. The Dale et al. Is kind of the opposite of that book, and it talks about how a couple school librarians started a community book club for adults and the impact that that had on the families and the community that the school served. And finally, again, for those of you who like to look at what's going on with older kids, the article by Wiseman called When You Do Your Best, There's Someone to Encourage You, looks at how adolescents themselves talk about how their families still impact their reading and their literacy processes. One of the emphases in the chapter you're going to read talks about and the small group work you're going to do looks at poverty and how poverty affects literacy in a series of concentric circles, so to speak. And so if you become interested in that, we have some optional materials here about poverty. It's not something that we're going to cover heavily in any other part of the course, but I know that many of you are working or hope to work in Title I schools, so this is going to matter to you. 3 optional things. There is, if you have like 5 minutes extra and you haven't seen this in a previous class, because I use this video a lot, there is an amazing video. It's a data video. It shows you, by the way, how you can display data very engagingly on the facts about income inequality in this country, and the facts are not what you think. It is shocking. Every time I see it, it shocks me again. So if you haven't seen it, I strongly recommend taking 5 minutes to watch that. 2 classic articles referenced in the chapter that you're reading. Brooks, Gunn, and Duncan wrote a very well-known review of the effects of poverty on children in all things, not just literacy. And then the Hart and Risley article about the 30 million word gap, they called it the early catastrophe. That again is referenced in the chapter that you're reading. And if you want to know more about that article is also available in your optionals. So I hope you have a great time this week, and your small group work is going to focus on helping kids and family who belong in families that are in poverty to literacy. So we're kind of combining families, but the families that we worry about the most, of course, are the ones who have the fewest resources. And those families and those kids are most dependent on the resources of the school library. So that's why the small group work is going to have that focus this week. And have a great week. Bye.